Ellen Sarkisian Chesnut was born in Mosul, Iraq. The daughter of refugees from the Armenian genocide of 1915 to 1923, Ellen grew up with the shadow of the genocide ever present within her home life. Her father was eaten up with rage at what had happened, while her mother would have preferred to have let the shadow remain in the old country. But of course, that was not to be. Ellen grew to become a teacher and an artist. She has had a long career teaching at such well-known Bay Area schools as Ben Franklin Junior High, Herbert Hoover Junior High, and most recently, Mission Comprehensive High School. She received her formal training in art at a variety of institutions, including San Francisco State University, the San Francisco Art Institute, the Academy of Arts College, among others. Her work, oftentimes centered on depicting the Armenian experience, has been exhibited in local galleries, including the Monkey Tree Gallery, the Stinson Gallery Print Show, the Nanny Goat Hill Gallery, the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, and the Nelson Morales Gallery. In an attempt to introduce Armenian art history to the Bay Area, most recently she presented a lecture regarding the works of renowned miniaturist Toros Roslin at the St. John Armenian Church.
Sometimes I'd have a conversation with a friend and he'd tell me about family experiences. Like I have one work here called Vartan's Boots, which has a relationship with a friend of mine. This painting is related to the fact that his mother was visited in the 1920s, where they were living in Sacramento, by a white-haired man, kind of a distinguished-looking gentleman. And my friend Zorab Krikorian this man asked my friend Zorab, do you know somebody by the name of Roxy? And Zorab said, that's my mom. And so he took this distinguished gentleman to his house, and the man, when he was let in, saw Zorab's mom at the top of the stairs and said, "Ah, Roxy, I wish I was wearing Vartan's boots right now." Well, this man turned out to be General Antranik. And Vartan was Zorab's mother's first husband, not Zorab's father, but her first husband, and he was one of Antranik's soldiers. So that's the basis of the painting, Vartan's Boots. And the central character in the painting is a pair of boots. Now, I went to a thrift store and bought a pair of boots for about $1 that looked, what I thought, pretty similar to what maybe our soldiers under Antranik would have worn. And then I developed the whole idea of the Bitlitsis, because Vartan was from Bitlis. And all of you who know your history know that the Bitlitsis had an awful lot of problems with the Turks. And so in this painting you see villagers, or people from Bitlis, and you see a Fedai with his bullets on his chest running, maybe to help them. And then what I have also are people in the church, and a little Madonna and Jesus from an illuminated manuscript. So that's where I used part of our old paintings in the very top of this painting. I started the Armenian series about 6 or 7 years ago. I wanted to have a show of Armenian art right around the 75th anniversary of the Armenian genocide. So I set aside a lot of time outside of my work as a teacher, and I did a lot of sleuthing in the main library of San Francisco and looked at family photographs and just started sketching and working on ideas. Once I started working on one painting, it just started snowballing. Then I was able to, you know, when you start doing something creative, then other ideas come to you too. I have another painting called the death of Iskuhi and the end of the Armenians of Marash. And the central figure in this painting, which is in back of me there, is a little girl who's laid out, all cleaned up in a little dress, ready to be buried. Now, my mother's family were from Gilikia, a town called Marash. They were not deported in 1915 because my grandfather was a tanner. So he was able to save his family and a number of other Armenians, Kurds, Turks who did not want to go and fight. He hired them in his tannery because it was one of the biggest in Marash. And they did not have to go. But in 1920, the tide turned for the Armenians that were not deported. So in this painting, you see a skull wearing a hat. The hat, it represents part of the uniform of the French troops, because we looked at them as our saviors, and they really added to the toll of Armenian dead. Instead of helping us, they hurt us even more. And they came in, they were going to be our big helpers, and instead they not surrendered, they abandoned the city with 2,000 Armenians following them into a blizzard, among which was my granddad wearing and you know, he made the best leather in Marash, and here he is wearing this raggedy old pair of slippers with holes in it. Can you imagine going into a blizzard like that? So that's the story of Iskuhi. And in the Marash war, only one of our family died, and she died because of a smallpox epidemic. And that was their darling little blonde-haired sister, Iskuhi. And then you're going to see another painting I did called The Carrying of the Manuscript. I have been so moved in my research by the number of Armenians in our villages and towns who loved these Armenian manuscripts so much that they would do anything to save them. Like, you know, some of them carried them on their backs. They would split them into two pieces. One part would be buried in the ground. The other part would be carried on their back. Well, this painting has to do with our people literally carrying the manuscript at the pain of death out of their village. And this painting, as you can see over here, shows a naked Armenian running with a wolf at the top representing the Turks. And then from an illuminated manuscript itself, I have a saint holding a lamb that really represents our people. But as you can see by the expression on the saint's face, or apostle's face, there's nothing much that he can do to help us out. I mean, we really had to help ourselves. And then I have a painting over here which is called Uprooted. Now, as you can see, there's a horse yanking up a tree. Well, the tree is us. That's our people. We're being uprooted here. And the woman with a very, I would say, expressionless face is my mother, who, when she came to America, did not want to hear about the genocide, because in her heart of heart, even though they did not go to the desert, it was an extremely painful subject for her to even think about. Well, this here painting that I have back here is a self-portrait, and there are elements in that painting from illuminated manuscripts, and I was able to do like what I call a pictorial collage, just piecing everything together, doing a little self-portrait of myself, my eyes. The eagle is a very important bird in our iconography and our culture. And so the hand also represents the artist's hand. That's me. And I'd really like to tell you some more about the background of Armenian painting. What you're looking at right now is one of the oldest extant surviving manuscripts of our people. Now this page and the one in back of it were attached to a much later manuscript, the Echmiadzin Gospels of 989. This page, Mother with Baby Jesus, was completed in the 5th or 6th century AD. When you look at it, take particular notice of the color, the expressiveness of the people. The artist here was influenced by a Syrian illuminator by the name of Rabula, who was a Byzantine illuminator, worked in northern Syria, and this page, this one and this one are all from the 5th and 6th centuries. These are the earliest examples of illuminated art we have of the Armenians. We have another very early example of Armenian illuminated manuscripts from 862 Vaspurakan, Greater Armenia. Please note the costumes of the two angels flanking the central figure of Jesus. They are wearing the imperial costumes of the Byzantine court. So you can see the first example that we showed you, the Armenians were influenced by the Syrians. And in this one, you can see the decided Greek Byzantine influence in the clothes worn by the angels flanking Jesus. We did not operate in a vacuum. Armenian artists were greatly influenced by the people that surrounded them, that invaded them, and that they traded with, including the Sasanians, the Persians, the Mongols, the Arabs. Very many great influences on the Armenians, and in later illuminated manuscripts, you will even see influences from India and China. Okay. What you are looking at right now is an example of one of our great illuminated manuscript artists' work. His name was Taurus Roslin. He lived in Gilicia, and he was the head of the patriarchal see at Hromkla. His name was Taurus Roslin. We had a very thriving civilization when the Armenians moved lock, stock, and barrel. Not everybody, but a lot of our population went to Gilicia and were builders, artists, and influenced by many people around them. And as you can see in Taurus Roslin's work, there is a real emphasis on the figure here and a lot of emotion. Also notice his colors. His palette is very rich. Take a look at the expressive faces of the figures here and the way that Taurus Roslin uses the lines radiating from this central figure, always drawing your eye all around the picture, not just focusing on the Christ figure, but taking a look, taking in everything. This is an example of the artist's composition. Again, one of the great characteristics of Roslin's style was how he was able, in one picture, to have so many things going on. Arshile Gorky, as many of you know, was one of our great modern painters. Born Vostanik Andoyan in Armenia, he was profoundly influenced by Taurus Roslin and Sarkis Pitsak, also of Gilicia. And Gorky felt that Roslin came before and Uccello, the great Italian painter, came next. I mean, this is how much influence Gorky felt that Taurus Roslin had on the art of painting. So I hope that all of you have a new respect for our great painters of the medieval period. So as you can see from what I've said, I hope, that I have been influenced by the great painters, by our great painters,